From Michigan, Ms. Tlaib is recognized.
I want to pause a little bit because I know that's intense. And I do appreciate you all being here because there are so many women and those that can be pregnant can't be here, and you're all speaking for them, and I really do appreciate that. You know, when I served in the state legislature, I just wish my colleagues were as obsessed with handling infant mortality. Environmental racism that gives so many folks, you know, pre-existing conditions and so much more. And the 13 district strong that I represent, because I grew up in the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, the city of Detroit, where unfortunately, because of systematic racism, we see poverty at high levels, we see pre-existing conditions because environmental racism exists and so much more. We are ranked in the city of Detroit with one of the worst asthma rates in the nation. We have one of the worst infant mortality in the nation. Just a few weeks ago, Chairman Khanna and I held an environmental subcommittee field hearing in my district about frontline communities facing high rates of pollution and so forth. At that hearing, I don't know if the chairwoman knows, it was incredible to hear folks from those that live in the shadows of Stellantis, U.S. Ecology, that are continuing to pollute, and communities that feel like they're sacrifice zones. One of the biggest health issues they raised was pregnancy complications, loss of pregnancy, difficult having children. I just even heard it from a dear friend who did environmental justice work, losing a child, thinking, is it because I live here? You know, Dr. Verma, one of the things I wish folks would understand, and maybe you, but addressing infant mortality and offering prenatal care, would that save lives?
Yes, that would absolutely save lives. And what we're saying here today, so I provide comprehensive reproductive health care. I support my patients who need abortion care and who decide they want to continue their pregnancies. And I support them in trying to access health insurance, in trying to get prenatal care, but there are huge limitations when it comes to that. And so when we're talking about people's access, it's also important that we pursue policies that allow people to have healthy pregnancies and parent in healthy ways. But we support all of that. I want people who need abortion care to get that care. I also want people who want to continue their pregnancies to be able to do so in a healthy way.
Yeah, you know, Ms. Lay, I cannot thank you enough for providing your testimony today. But I don't know, you know, as a woman in our country right now, I feel like we're not as obsessed with the children that are among us living in poverty, that are going to schools with, you know, lead in the walls, where most of my schools right now don't even have access to clean water. Their fountains are shut down. I mean, why is abortion ban so dangerous for patients and families with stories like yours?
I appreciate the question, Representative. And that question reminds me that as I've sat here, when Representative Flood and other members who have now left the room so they can't hear this correction, have sat here to use their 5 minutes to tell us about how eyelids are developed and fingerprints and heartbeats. It's demeaning and it's insulting to insinuate that that's what I need to hear to know that my son and that his life mattered. It's insulting to all pregnant people everywhere. The rhetoric and the sensationalization creates stigma and shame, and it's wrong. And it's really difficult to sit here and to hear that and then not actually be looked in the eye and asked about my experience, not being asked a single question while I have to sit here. And I have the privilege and honor of sitting here and representing so many people, my friends Karen and Whitney and Erica, who also had to say goodbye to babies before they ever held them in their arms. Mr. Higgins, your story was beautiful, and I share your grief as a parent. No one needs to be reminded of the sanctity of life. We need to be reminded that this is a nuanced, complex decision that is never going to be answered by a binary yes or no question or the amount of weeks that my ultrasound shows. We need to leave people alone to make these decisions for themselves and their families and the betterment of our communities.
Thank you, Ms. Lay. You deserve a lot more time. And I just want you to know, even though you may not have felt seen and heard here, I see and hear you. With that, I yield, Madam Chair.